Thank you. I appreciate it, Neil. And yes, I think it was one of the last, if not the last, Tiger Talk before the pandemics. So hopefully my current Tiger Talk will not bring on anything like that. So as Neil mentioned, so my background, just to briefly go over it, I have been doing future of work and decision making since 1999. So this is my background. This is my expertise. How do you make good decisions in the future of work? That's why my company is called Disaster Avoidance Experts. How do you avoid disasters with the future of work coming up? Because none of us knows the exact details of the future of work, but you can know how to make good decisions, including good decisions about AI. So I've been doing AI consulting for companies coming from behavioral science perspective, from a psychology perspective, of adoption of AI. How do you effectively adopt AI? How do you effectively use AI? How do you get it into your team, into yourself psychologically, thinking about that. So the important thing to realize is I'm not a computer scientist. So I'm not going to go into jargon. I'm not going to go into various technicalities. If I can learn this as a behavioral scientist whose background is in psychology, I got a PhD in behavioral science. They studied behavioral science at UNC Chapel Hill. I taught for 7 years as a professor at Ohio State, and I did not teach any computer science classes. If I can do it, you can do it. Everyone can do it. Everyone can learn how to use AI tools effectively. And so this is what this presentation is going to be about. How anyone can learn how to use AI tools. If you can learn how to use Excel, lots of people have this framework of AI usage wrong in their heads. They think this is an IT department. So whenever I work with companies, I typically tend to run into AI being the domain of IT. And that's really the wrong perspective to have. IT should not be the one dominating AI usage. AI is much more a tool like Excel or word processing. This is something that anyone can learn how to use effectively. If you can learn how to use Excel, you can learn how to use AI and how to build AI tools. If you can learn how to use word processing, you can learn how to use PowerPoint. If you can learn how to use Adobe, you can learn how to use AI tools and build AI tools that are going to be incredibly helpful for you for saving a lot of time and energy. Now, why is this talk called Stop Overpaying for AI? Because for small, medium enterprises, I see this as a big problem in terms of them getting AI tools from vendors that they could have built themselves and paying a lot of money. So I was meeting with a company that was about 11 months ago. It was in Columbus, and we're sitting over lunch talking about their AI adoption. And they already made some AI adoption progress. So they had a chatbot on their website that was trained on their thought leadership expertise. And this is the type of company that sells thought leadership expertise. They do thought leadership, they do consulting, so people sign up for their content as member fees, and they can then sign into their website if they're a member. So that's the kind of business they're on. And so they trained the chatbot on their thought leadership, on their content, using this chatbot, or they hired a company to do so, that trained them on the chatbot. So this is a chatbot. It's a pretty good chatbot. I saw it, it's reasonably smart, and they have a good model where it gives brief answers if you are just on the website but aren't signed in. But if you sign in and therefore you're a paying member, it gives much more thorough and in-depth answers. It's a good model. Now, how much money do you think it costs them per year to have that chatbot? It's a 5-year contract, by the way. So guess some numbers.
In the millions.
Okay, millions. Others?
How much does it actually cost, or how much did you charge them?
How much did the company charge them? How much are they paying out of pocket per year?
100,000.
100,000, okay. Other people?
50K per year.
50. Okay, so 50, yes, you got it exactly right. So they're paying $50,000 per year. And this, and I just saw a news story about a month ago where New York City had a similar chatbot, which was trained only on their business code to answer questions for small businesses about how to start up a small business. It cost them about $500,000 per year. Now, if I work with them to build it, it would be a one-time fee of $10,000. That's how much it should cost if you're working with someone who helps you build AI tools. And again, these are tools I learned how to build. So if you want to invest sweat equity and build it yourself, and like learn how to build these tools and build it yourself, it doesn't need to cost you anything. So if you have much more time than money, you can build these tools yourself. I train, like I said, my role is training people on how to do this, accelerating them, then letting them do it. And that is why this first point I want to make is stop overpaying for AI. There's so many things that you can do yourself. Any of these like fanciest chatbots that you can find on the website, if they're providing information like FAQs, they're not doing something more complex, you can do that yourself. And that will cost you something like $40 per month for the user fees plus something like, and then it's just going to be per usage, maybe something like 5 cents per conversation, even less. And so think about all the companies, all the people who are here, your companies, anything from the wellness studio to the investment bank. If you want to have a chatbot on your website and look like you're from the future rather than the present, then you should really be thinking about building such tools yourself and answering questions. So that's an example. Now the second point is boosting engagement. Why did I talk about this? Well, a lot of you are just small business owners yourselves, or you're working for people, and you probably know how anxious people are about AI. There was a recent Pew Research survey that showed that 50% of Americans are more anxious than excited about AI tools. About 10% are more excited than anxious. And so that is clearly going to be a lot of the people that you work with, a lot of the people you hire, a lot of the people who you are engaging with, they're going to be anxious about these AI tools. And so if you want people to engage with them, you need to demystify them. You need to show them how the AI tools work, and you need to get them involved in actually building these tools. You need to get them involved in actually co-creating these tools. And so this is the key. You don't want to just buy black box vendor tools. You want to get them to actually build the tools themselves. Then they understand how the tools work, and I'll show you what I mean. And it makes things much easier, much more likely for people to be engaged and to boost their excitement and working with you. So that's two. And third is innovation. So increasing innovation. What do I mean by that? When I talk about innovation, I don't mean a jargony corporate words. I mean there's something very specific. I mean efficiency and effectiveness. When I talk about efficiency, that means using less resources to do the same things. When I talk about effectiveness, it means using the same resources to do things better, with a better impact. And the only way you can really do that with AI effectively and efficiently is to get people really engaged, so it gets to the engagement. Why is that? Well, AI is a different technology than the typical IT tools. It's much more, like I said, like Excel or word processing, where you really need to customize it to each individual workflow, to each individual use case, to what each individual employee is doing. And so each individual employee needs to figure out the best tools and the best usage of this AI for them. You can't just have a standardized, let's say, CRM and approach and expect that it will work well for everyone. So this is why you really want to focus on innovation, you want to focus on building engagement, and you want to focus on customizing AI tools by each individual person for their own needs. So that's a broad overview that I'm talking about here. Now, any questions about this broad overview? All right. So let's take a look at some examples. Companies that you don't typically think of as using AI. Roofer. So this is a roofer sales assistant tool. Now, what does this tool do? So one of the problems with roofers is that they often miss opportunities for actually selling their services. So what happens? You have some hail that made some holes in your roof. You call a roofer. The roofer comes. They give you a quote. Maybe they go on top of your roof, or they send a drone. They give you a quote, and then they leave you alone to deal with insurance. Now, we don't really know how to deal with insurance unless you are an insurance specialist. I don't think I heard any here. And so lots of people, when they try to deal with insurance, aren't very successful. Either their claim gets denied, or they get coverage for replacing like 10 shingles. And so that's not great for the homeowner. It's also not great for the roofer. It's great for the insurance. And so this tool is meant to help roofers work with homeowners to guide them hold their hand while they're going through the insurance process. So this is what the tool does. So let's take a look at it. The first thing. So you might notice this is built using the ChatGPT interface. We can talk about different tools later and which ones to use. But this one is built using the ChatGPT interface. And the first part is what the roofer inputs. So the roofer has this tool on their tablet, or they can have it on their phone, or they can have it on their iPad or something like that, or on their laptop. But what the roofer does is, again, they go to the roof or send a drone to the roof to take some pictures of damage. And so you'll see those pictures of damage. Get the light off. Let's see. Okay. So you take pictures of damage. That's the first one. Then the second thing that they put in is this renewal package with the bill. So that you get that package from the homeowner and you upload that into the AI tool so that it knows which insurance it's dealing with. And then you say what you want. So this is kind of jargony terms that roofers use that they know. 2-layer tear-off code trigger generates strategy, 2 layers of shingles, claim for collateral, hail indicators, and so on. So this is just a paragraph that the roofer knows what they want to accomplish. Again, the roofers are an expert on roofing. They're an expert on stuff like this. They're not an expert on insurance. And so the next part is what the AI will generate to help the roofer guide the homeowner through the process. So first, it shows that it knows what the code is, gives the links for codes, Ohio Governor, Gov, progressive.com, that is a progressive insurance claim. Then it gives a plain English coverage snapshot, so giving a brief overview of why it matters. All claim notices and sites. It gives the wind hail deductible, 10% of coverage A, why it matters. Explains the damage exclusions. We must prove direct physical loss beyond appearance or rely on code triggers and collateral. All of this stuff. Then it gives, so that's the summary. Then it gives kitchen table talking points that the roofer will use when now having the conversation with the homeowner. So the roofer will say, we're filing for direct physical loss, explain what they're doing, and because your roof has 2 layers, Ohio residential code requires a full tear-off before any new roof work, which is great. That's what the roofer wants to hear. They don't want to replace 10 shingles, that's a $2,000 job. They want to replace the whole roof, that's a $20,000 job. So that's excellent. So we'll prove mismatch using collateral hits and soft metals, gutters and caps, and apply Ohio's reasonable comparison appearance rule. So then the next is the step-by-step timeline of each claim, of what happens. So they explain to the homeowner what will happen and giving the homeowner confidence that they know what they're doing and that they will be able to go through the claim process effectively. So going on all the details of the timeline, then they go into anticipated claims adjuster objections. And so they tell the homeowner how they will handle the inevitable objections from the claims adjusters, who the claim adjusters obviously don't want to pay out money. So say that we'll repair a few shingles. To address that, you do side-by-side photos with available free tabs, slope wide shots showing weathering, and with the Ohio code that says replace as much to result in a reasonably comparable appearance. And so a patch won't be reasonably comparable in appearance, therefore you need to do the whole roof tear-off. So you could see where this logic is going. And so again, giving all the objections, then giving documentation checklists, so all the documents that are going to be necessary. Then exact talking points for the adjuster on site. So once the adjuster comes on site to inspect the roof, it guides the homeowner and the roofer to what are the talking points. For example, the roof has 2 layers. Ohio code prohibits installation of a 3rd layer, so any legal repair requires full tear-off to the deck. Great. So again, $20,000 job instead of $2,000 job. Then claim timeline actions will execute, so going through to be an ally to the homeowner. Escalation paths if denied or short paid. Photo capture plan. How this ties to direct physical loss, which is what we need to prove. And the next You can ask it for other things like draft the proof of loss cover letter or on-site inspection script. I'm not going to show it to you. I think you get the idea. So you can keep asking questions that are going to be the important things that it needs for our next steps. So imagine this tool adapted to your own sales process, whatever you're doing. Think about your own sales process when you're trying to sell something. If you're trying to sell anything that's a little bit more complex than a $10 widget, and you want to actually adapt it to your customer, you want to explain how they will benefit from it, this is a great tool. So kind of thinking about how do you adapt it and how do you interpret it and how do you customize it to your customer's needs, this is the kind of thing that you want to be thinking about. So think about how the expertise of your best salespeople can be used for each individual person. And so this is going to be really helpful. So write down some ideas at this stage where you think you can use a tool of this type. I'll give you 30 seconds. In the meantime, there's a question here.
You're probably going to get into this, and if you are, just tell me.
I will.
This is seems like it lends itself to an agentic or an iterative type of an approach versus just, lobbing the prompts at it and then responding to it. Could you know where I'm going with this? Could you address that, please?
Sure. So this is where you have other questions, other things that you put into it. So in terms of agentic, what does agentic mean? Agentic means is a tool that can accomplish certain goals in the world. And so this is a tool that's meant to accomplish certain outcomes. So produce certain types of output. And then it can produce additional output based on that. So yes, in that sense, it's agentic.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. So again, 30 seconds, write down some ideas, and then I'll take some questions before going on to show you how to build this tool.
We've got two microphones here, so on that side. Start here. Okay with that?
Sorry, maybe you will get to this, but how does this work in comparison on a closed system versus open system when you're putting your information into, like you said, chat for this one, and ensuring that your proprietary information isn't just out there in OpenAI?
Sure. So this is a broader question about how do you ensure that your data stays secure. The answer to that is that you get a business plan. You never use, if you want data to stay secure, you never use a free tool, but you also never use a personal account. So personal account, unless you go through a lot of hoops to opt out, the companies will train on your data, and some companies will train on your data regardless because they don't have a way for you to opt out. It depends on the specific AI tool that we're talking about. We can get into details. But from a professional perspective, if you don't want your data to be trained on, the easiest thing is to get a business account. And business account is going to be, for pretty much all of these AI companies, except Copilot, is going to be $25 a month, and for a minimum of 2 seats. With most companies, I think some have 5, so anywhere from 2 to 5 seats. So you can, if you want your personal data to not be trained on, even for your home, like if you're using it for personal things, get a business account and use it for, just pay $50 a month and use it for your own personal information. Nothing will get trained on. These companies, and again, if you're starting up a small business, you don't want your data to be trained on, of course, you want to get the $50 per month plan. Now, I have a lot of people who ask me when I say that, well, what if they train on your data anyway? Well, OpenAI just did a $700 billion raise. So it's worth $700 billion officially at this stage, with companies like NVIDIA and so on investing into it. And it's worth $700 billion to them to not violate their terms of service. So you can be pretty confident that whatever benefits they will get from training on your data are going to be less than $700 billion. So you shouldn't worry about, like, if you get a business plan, you'll be fine.
I'm just going to talk loud. For this example that you showed, was there a background data that was entered into the GPT so that there was a consistent format each time a salesperson went in to do this?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So I can choose. Oh. I think I accidentally exited out of this airtime screen. Can you get Brooke to help out? Okay. I'll get the image up in the meantime. Not the image up, but the tool up in the meantime.
While you get that up, can I ask you another question?
You can definitely ask me another question.
So, in reference to the previous question about the data, I'm not necessarily concerned with my personal data being shared and trained on, but I am concerned that if I'm putting client information into that data.
Yeah, same thing. It's worth $700 billion to them. Didn't realize I can't like click on that. So yeah, it's worth $700 billion to them to not train on it. So you should not be worried about your data being trained on. You're going to be safe. You're going to be fine. Your client's data is just, again, your client's data is not worth $700 billion. If they violate their terms of service, everyone will go to another AI tool. And so it's just not something to worry about. Like you can tell your clients it's worth $700 billion to them. If your data is worth $700 billion, maybe they'll do it. Excellent. Okay. So this is the ChatGPT screen. You can recognize that. And where the relevant tool will live is in these GPTs. So this is a tool I built for an Ohio roofer, as you can imagine. And this is just a bunch of different tools I built for myself or other companies. Okay. So this is the tool, Progressive Ohio Roof Claim Strategist. And so this was a tool we built separate tools. This was 8 separate tools, but I built the first one and then they learned how to do it and they built the rest without my help. Because again, my goal is to have capability transfer of people learning how to build tools and then not needing me after that. So this is the tool. This is the background of the tool. And I'll show you how to create these in a bit, but let me just show you what the tool looks like. So it's a combination of knowledge. You're asking about knowledge. Someone was asking about knowledge and instructions. This is called a fine-tuned model. So a fine-tuned model is a model. It takes the large language model, LLM, as its base. That's the intelligent. And then it trains it on your specific data and instructions. So let's take a look at the data. The data is going to be in 2 parts. One is going to be the strategic guide to winning the roof replacement battle in Ohio. And it's going to be 9,400 words that talks about the Ohio legal code and how roofing companies can best use the Ohio legal code to get insurance companies to do as much highest possibility of full coverage of roofing replacement, all of that. So this is what this document is about. So this is one of the 2 documents on which it's trained. The second one is going to be specifically on Progressive insurance, on the Progressive insurance claims process and how to win it. And this one is going to be 9,600 words. So how to win the battle with Progressive insurance in particular. How to go through their claims process. So I said we needed to build, or I built this first one, they built the rest of the 7 because it's pretty simple once I showed to them how to build it. And so each of them has the same strategic guide, but different mandates. So Progressive insurance, Allstate, and so on for each of these. Now, how are these documents created? So we used an AI tool to create the initial version of the document. We use a functionality called deep research. So what you would do is you would go into any AI tool like Claude. So Claude, by the way, right now is the smartest tool available, and especially Opus 4.6. And you use the research functionality. And so when you use the research functionality, it's a specific functionality. It takes about 20 minutes to do an in-depth, thorough research report on any topic of your choice, literally any topic. So that's what the research functionality does. Now, after we did the research functionality, we gave it to some lawyers that's the first one, to make sure that it's fully aligned with the most updated version of the Ohio law code on how to deal with insurance. And we gave the claims process document to some independent insurance adjusters who are independent and who work on behalf of homeowners or roofers to help work with insurance to make sure it gets fully paid. They reviewed those, and then they made some corrections, and then we uploaded them into the AI tool. Then figured out the wording here, the instructions. So as you see, the knowledge base is not super complex to create. You can create this yourself. Like I just described how we created it. So you just run a research report and then give it to experts. If you're an expert, great, then you review it yourself. If you're not an expert, give it to your friend, give it to someone you hire. The roofing company paid for lawyers and claims adjusters to review it. Next is the real secret sauce. So the knowledge base is part of the secret sauce. The bigger secret sauce is the natural language programming. So if you can use natural language, if you can make an introduction for yourself here, you can do this. So take a look at the prompt here. This is called the system prompt. The system prompt is the directions in the background of AI that tell it how to interact with you. So you are a Progressive Ohio roof claim strategist focusing on roofing contractors. The goal is to create an actionable strategy and so on. And it talks about required user input, policy excerpt or PDF, optional, ideal photos or measurements. Then you could see this output. You remember this output. Plain English language coverage snapshot, kitchen table talking points, step-by-step action timeline with a chart of how it would look like, anticipate adjuster objections and rebuttals, documentation checklist, escalation paths, disclaimer, gives the style, the never invent rules, and so on. And so this is the whole of it. That's all for that tool. Now, this tool within 6 months helped the company increase their sales, the number of sales they made by 30%, and the size of each sale by 25%. And no wonder, right? Like how many companies are going to help you actually go through the insurance process? You call 5 roofers, one of them tells you, I will help you go through the process, I will hold your hand, here you go. Are you gonna go with them or are you gonna go with the lowest bidder, right? Which company are you gonna go with? Like how much hassle is that going to avoid you as a homeowner? So this is a basic tool called a fine-tuned model. They have different names within Claude, Anthropic. They are going to be called artifacts. Within Gemini, they're going to be called gems. Within Copilot, they're going to be called agents. Within ChatGPT, they're going to be called GPTs. But the generic name for them is a fine-tuned model, where what you do is you put some knowledge into the background that it will be trained on. And then important thing about knowledge, the knowledge base that you saw, is to avoid what's called hallucinations. What these AI companies call hallucinations, what we in the normal world call BS. So it's basically making stuff up. And it's making stuff up because large language models are trained on the whole of the internet. And sometimes you might be surprised to find out that things on the internet are wrong. Big surprise, right? So when you put knowledge into the database, and in this specific way that I just showed you, it will always reference that knowledge first before responding and will use that knowledge. It's called retrieval augmented generation. RAG is a technical term for it. And so that is what you want to be using. All right, questions about this?
Is this the same thing as creating skills in Claude?
No, so skills in Claude enable Claude to do different things, but this is different. This is intelligence. So this is fine-tuning intelligence. It's not enabling Claude to do things that it previously has not been able to do.
When you're configuring
wait.
All right. So when you're configuring the ChatGPT and the prompt, are you using like sales processes to if you're trying to improve the sales process of your organization, do you include like specific metrics or guidelines that your like sales process already exists and that way you can duplicate it?
Yes, the question was about sales process, and you definitely want to include as much information and context as possible to help the tool, whether it's OpenAI or Claude or any tool that you use, come up with the best answer for you. And this is an iterative process. So for example, how did we build this? So I helped the company do the initial build, or I did the initial build. It took me about 2 weeks, maybe about 25 hours of time to do this initial build. Then the company took about 2 weeks within their office to iterate and improve on it. Because I'm not a roofer, I don't know what they want, right? So I can only give the basics of like what this should look like. Then they iterated on it and improved it. And then over the next month, we tested it out in the field. And the roofers gave some feedback, some like tweaks and adjustments and how it looked like in the field. And then they just completely used it without worrying about it. So that's what the process looks like of a kind of iterative build and improvement.
Yes, whenever I've done this with GPTs, okay?
Yeah.
And whenever I create them there, it will prompt me for some of the information that become the rules. But you seem to have a really good set of rules, and my guess is that takes some time.
Yes.
And that's not something you're just going to get from the prompts. You have to really work at it. Because I've had to do many iterations. I just wondered what your experience was with that. Sure,
Absolutely. So yeah, that's why I'm talking about the secret sauce. So the secret sauce is going to be the rules. The knowledge is part of it, and sometimes knowledge is obvious. Sometimes it's a little bit more complex, like in this case. But the secret sauce is going to be those rules, those system prompts. How do you actually tell it to have the outcome that you want? And the way that you do that is you write that. A good way of doing that is to describe your goal and then tell the tool that you're using to come up with its own version of instructions that it thinks will most closely approximate the outcome that you desire. And so then you put that into the system prompt and then you start chatting with it and see what kind of outcomes you get. And then you see, okay, I don't like this aspect about the outcomes. I don't like this aspect. So for example, the first time I delivered the build to the Ohio roofer, they were complaining that the answer was too long. And I come from more of a background working with professional services. So I'm much more used to not working with roofers, and they have much more concise needs than professional service firms who lawyers and investment bankers and so on really want it detailed and thorough. But this one, for example, we had to get to maximum 2,000 tokens. And so that's going to be just under something like maybe 1,700 words. And so here we had to, that was one of the changes. And there are many, many other changes, but that's an example. So you have to iterate over time with the instructions. So then you change the instructions, you see how that works. You change the instructions again, you see how that works. That's the iteration and improvement process.
You trained it here on static information about insurance, but what if Progressive updates their policies? What if Progressive changes their policies and you're not informed on that and your information?
Sure.
Or to compare it to my business, if I need to find the tariffs on something, the tariff schedule keeps changing. It changed a few weeks ago, no one knows what it might be tomorrow. So how do you make it adaptable as the information changes?
Yep, great question. So this is an insurance company I work with, and I'm signed into their backend, so I can show you this. And so here are going to be the forms on which all the information is based. So this is going to be the insurance forms. So again, I don't only work with roofers, I also work with insurance companies and everyone in between. And so here is going to be like these forms. Let's say, just to bring it up and show you what the form looks like. So it's going to be like a 10-page form of some sort of dwelling property. And this tells you when it was last updated, 2013. And all of these forms are going to be potentially updated at any specific point in time. So same idea, right? So what happens in this case is that this is SharePoint. It's connected automatically to the AI tool, to the back end of the AI tool. So you upload things, you can also connect it to SharePoint and so on. And so what you do is you simply have a web scraper that finds any updates and automatically downloads them into the SharePoint or whatever other tool. If you're using Gemini, you can use Google. So it's very easy to update these things and to have an automatic process of updating these things. Now that's one part of the answer. The other part of the answer is something more complex. So like when, let's say, you're working with tools that are dynamic. What you use is what's called an API, which is an application programming interface. And an API is something that allows one computer program to talk to another. Ideally, it would also have what's called an MCP, which is Model Context Protocol. It's a software program that's built on top of an API. And the goal of a MCP is to help the AI agent work effectively with an API. It could still do the job if it doesn't have that MCP, but it would do the job more effectively if it has an MCP built on top of an API.
So if I wanted to provide this service for
You'll need a microphone. Yeah. Not quite as loud as some other folks, which is not a bad thing. I'm also quiet without a microphone.
If I wanted to provide this service for a wellness studio, what should my pitch sound like?
What should your what? Look.
Pitch of the idea to this wellness studio.
So if you want to provide what service to a wellness studio?
Creating them a system to help them simply create a better experience for their clients there.
Well, I mean, it's a very vague term. So for example, do you want to, like I said in the beginning, it will create a good experience for the clients if you create a chatbot on their website that's able to answer questions about their chakras at any stage during the day, right? Like, that's an experience. So AI tools are incredibly flexible. They're incredibly adaptable. So you can't just say you want to create a better experience for your clients. It's what you want to do with it, what's the outcome that you want to accomplish, and then what you want to do. Like this roofer Ohio sales strategist is an example.
Anyone else?
For web scraping, do you think Amplify is still the best tool, or is there something better out there at this point?
I mean, you can build your own tools if you want. Amplify is a fine tool. There's definitely, you can either choose to build your own tools if you are sufficiently sophisticated, but you wouldn't use an AI tool for that. It's just like an automation tool. Yeah, Amplify is great.
And then could you go back to the screen that had the iteration process?
The iteration process, sure. This one?
Yeah, so when you hit configure and then you go under constructions, I noticed that you had like a layer of rules. Is that a systematic framework that's provided? Or
No.
is that something that you included?
It's something that you put into it. So let me show you what it looks like. I'll just use Gem just to get a variety of things different people are using. So when you go into Gemini, you're going to go into Gems here, and then you go into New Gem. And then you give your gem a name, you give a description, you give the instructions, you give the knowledge base, you give some default rules if you want to create images or so on to do deep research. So that's where you actually put in your information. So if you're curious how it looks like from ChatGPT, I can show that too. So you go explore GPTs, you go to create over here. And then you have two buttons, create or configure. Don't use create, use only configure. You give the name, description, instructions, knowledge base, recommended models, capabilities, and so on.
Would you be able to like show some of the things that you had in your configure box? I noticed that like that fifth category was like style. Just like,
Sure.
Use it for reference.
Yep. Knowledge and citation rules, required user input, output, style, interaction guardrails.
And that was something you had the AI develop for you?
So I asked it for the initial outline, and then the initial outline had to be changed quite significantly, but it's good to have that as an initial starting point rather than developing it from scratch.
Thank you.
Sure. One more question before I go on. I want you to make sure to show you another tool, and questions are great, but we'll run out of time.
So to use your analogy, this seems very much so like Excel or word processor. It's a great tool. I think a lot of the anxiety that people feel about AI is like user deployment, instruct people. Do you think it will get to that point, or do you think?
No question. I mean, we already are. You've probably seen that Block laid off 40% of its employees. And there's no question that you'll get to that point. You'll have a lot of people laid off. Yeah, AI is going to cause massive economic displacement. The nice thing about this approach is that I'm not providing a black box tool. I'm not providing like a vendor-built tool. I'm teaching your employees how to use AI. And your employees are going to get much better, much more likely to stay with your company because you will retain the people who use AI well and who build AI tools well, because that's the future. No question, that's one. Second, even if they're worried that something will happen to your company and they won't be able to work with your company, they'll be much better able of finding a job elsewhere. If you look at AI tools, if you look at job postings, so many of them are requesting AI capacity abilities, so ability with AI tools. And then they can now have this tool in their portfolio that they can show you, hey, I built this tool, or I helped build this tool. I know how to build these tools. So you can be confident that I have this capacity.
That makes sense. Thanks.
All right. So let me show you a tool that I think it'll be of interest. All right. So talking about web scraping, this is a tool that looks for association chapters that have people listed on their websites as the contacts for speakers. So I do a lot of speaking, and a lot of association chapters, a lot of various clubs want me to speak for them, or they would like me to speak for them if they knew I existed. And so the goal here is to help them know I exist in a customized, personalized way. So first, the AI tool finds this information, their first name through their website, which is typically linked on the actual website of the association or the club or the chapter that says, we're looking for speakers, apply here, contact this person. So this is, let's say, the Ohio Finance Agency or the Toledo Regional Chamber. This is specifically for Toledo. And then the AI tool creates a customized pitch to each individual person based on their background, which is going to be so much more likely to be opened than a generic pitch. So if you think about doing marketing or customer retention, anything that you want to customize to individual people, whether it's cold outreach or retaining customers, this is a great tool. So again, let's take a look at what this looks like. This is the person, Alma Fesh. This is her email. Again, this is all listed as people who want speakers. Ohio Finance Agency. And then it's going to create, the AI tool creates an email subject line. So Ohio Housing Finance Agency AI for home buyer assistance programs. You could see how customized this is. It's like you went on their website, you researched it, and you really customize it to them. Then an icebreaker sentence. Your upcoming July 2025 down payment assistance change, 3% conventional, 3.5% government loans, presents the perfect opportunity to equip Ohio Finance Agency with customized AI tools that streamline application processing. Great, very customized. LinkedIn pitch. Hi Alma, given Ohio's focus on affordable housing access, let's show members how to stop renting generic AI and start owning cost-effective staff-built solutions. And so that's a LinkedIn pitch for LinkedIn automation. Then this is a 5-email sequence. So second email would be Ohio Finance Agency LIHTC program optimization with AI. So again, very customized, very specific, very like specifically to you. This person knows what they're talking about. And so icebreaker. For a group like Ohio's finance agency prioritizing affordable housing access for low to moderate income families, a build your own AI approach is safer than generic tools. Again, very super customized to their needs. And here, then is what it's going to look like when I send it. So here's the email. Looks like a totally just person sending it to person with high customization. So this is a tool that you can use if you're thinking about automation and marketing, and again, marketing to new people, or you want to think about customer retention, marketing into your existing people, or you want to sell to your existing email list, to your existing contact list. You know even more about them than I do from a public search on this organization, from an AI search. Now let me show you what the backend looks like. So this is not built within ChatGPT. This is a more complex tool, as you can imagine. So this gets information scraped from the internet into a research tool called Brave Research. You can use any search tool like Google or Bing. Brave is just a little cheaper, and I'm cheap. And so this uses an API, told you about API before, to find, it puts in the person's name, the venue information, their city, their LinkedIn website, and then it's with the words mission, strategic plan, news, update 2025, 2026. And so that provides the search. The search results in about a 200-word prompt that goes into Claude Anthropic. And the Claude Anthropic is just a more sophisticated version of what you saw before. This is the system prompt. You're a strategic communications expert. Your job is to write a 5-email outreach sequence and LinkedIn pitch. Don't use generic terms like you must be busy, just checking in, circling back, and so on. Instead, dive straight into a specific observation from the research. Always cite the research. Every subject line must include a specific detail from the research, and so on. And it talks about just how to do the pitch. And so this is the tool that will then be the intelligence. So this is when we're talking about agentic AI, this is really the more deeply agentic AI, when it combines intelligence with automation to do real things in the world. And then puts all that information back into the spreadsheet. And then here you just use a LinkedIn automation tool, which is standardly available, or your email, CRM, HubSpot, or whatever else, mail merge tool. I use Yam to send the email. Questions about this? I know Ray had the first question, so let him go.
I was just going to ask you about the human in the loop on this. You know, do you let these emails go out without any oversight?
At first I did. At first I oversaw them, but then I saw that I got it to a state where it's good enough that I don't need to.
Okay, are you concerned about that being lax at some point because the AI is so good that something bad could go out? Or?
Well, that's what I said. So at first I reviewed them,
Yeah.
and I saw like after the first 10 emails of about like 200 each. So I reviewed the first 1,000 essentially, and I saw that they were like 99.98% good, and I'm okay with a 2% with a 0.02% failure rate out of like 1,000, where it wouldn't be like where the tone would be off. If these were high value contacts, like super high value, I would review it every time. Yeah, sure. And then
for the email outreach, how important is it to like rotate your emails and have multiple domains or emails, or do you think that's kind of blown out of proportion?
Yeah, it's not. I mean, if you're sending like thousands of emails, yes, but otherwise, if you're sending like several hundred emails a day, that's fine.
From one inbox?
Yeah, as long as it's a well-used inbox and not like you just created it.
I can just talk about, but why do you need the whole, sorry. Why do you need the whole innate workflow? Could you just tell Claude to go find this list, scrape the web, find their contact info, generate the email? Like, could you do this all in Claude? And
you could.
How do you know when to implement some of those more complex tools versus doing it all in one?
So if you only had one email, that's great to do in Claude. But if you want to have an automation of like 200 emails here, where you need 200 emails in a spreadsheet and then back 200 emails with the written information back into the spreadsheet, that's not something that Claude does. So it's just a matter of like massiveness. Claude can do the writing for you, but you need to connect if you are working with spreadsheets, you want information back into spreadsheets. If you're trying to connect systems together through an API, you definitely need tools like N8N or Power Automate or Make.com. There are many tools like this. No, no.
Anyone else? What kind of response rate do you get when you use a system like this?
It's about, yeah, it's about like 8 or 9 times more than generic emails.
Great.
It's not surprising, right? Other questions?
Is the Brave Research a paid data feed?
Yes. So all of the...
I'm sure nobody heard that. So.
Yes. So the question was about the research. Almost all APIs are going to be paid. So the research here was $3 for 1,000 searches. And then the Claude API was something like about 5 cents per person.
Are you guys excited about this after seeing this? Or are you concerned? Are you more like anxious and concerned?
Excited.
Excited?
Work all great.
Say it again.
I said I'm getting to work all
Okay, awesome. That's great. Okay, anything else you'd like to say?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to encourage you to think about your attitude toward AI tools. Like if you're getting like help from somebody, this is the kind of attitude you want to have. So this is one of my clients, Kratos Industries. You want, if you're going to be not doing this, if you're not going to be doing all the research yourself, like it took me like over a year to get really like almost full-time like work and practice to get good at AI tool building. Now, you can do that and invest the time yourself. But the general idea is if you want to accelerate your process, if you want to improve, you want it to be a short-term engagement where you're focusing on capability transfer. You're actually learning, and so that you'll be able to build the tools yourself. Like the Ohio Roofer. Like I build the first tool and then they build the rest of the 7 themselves. And this is another company called Kratos Industries. You can look it up. It's a they provide data center components. So it's a manufacturer. Again, not something someone you would think about using AI tools. So as you see, they say, hey, I did some training for them, did the first tool, and then I checked in a couple of months later and asked them how they're doing. They said, things are going pretty well so far. We've been able to make some progress, and now we're able to fly on our own. Thanks for getting us in there. That's the attitude you want to have with AI tools and AI training. Just want to help you get in the air. This is a tool like Excel. This is a tool like Adobe, Photoshop, like PowerPoint. You can learn how to use it yourself. You don't need to rely on IT. This is something that you can do. That's the message I want to leave you with. Thank you.